Good morning, all. I'm Purnima, and I extend a very warm welcome to all of you to the third edition of the International Conference on Positive Psychology, organized by the National Positive Psychology Association. For over a decade, NPPA has been a dynamic hub connecting scholars, educators, practitioners, and leaders driven by a collective commitment to advancing well being and human potential through positive psychology. This conference continues that legacy, offering a space for dialogue, collaboration, and inspiration as we explore the theme of cultural perspectives in positive psychology. We are truly delighted to have you here as part of this growing and dynamic community. It is with great honor and reverence that we introduce Professor Vimala Veeraraghavan, a distinguished luminary in the field of psychology, to deliver the presidential address at the Third International Conference on Positive Psychology. A gold medalist in MA Psychology and a PhD from University of Delhi, Professor Veeraraghavan has been a pioneer in Indian psychology, heading the psychology department and founding applied psychology department at South Campus DU with a focus on practical training. Post retirement, she played a key leadership role at Amity University, establishing departments in psychology and in forensic sciences, and launching MPhil and PhD programs. At IGNU, she set up psychology department and introduced a wide range of academic offerings. She has also served at the Zakir Hussain Center for Educational Studies at the Jawaharlal Nehru University and currently continues as Emeritus Professor and Dean Academics at APJ Satya University, Gurugram. With over 4 decades of teaching, research, and mentorship, she has guided more than 30 MPhil and PhD scholars, authored 22 books, published extensively. Her work has earned her prestigious honors, including the Asiatic Society Award, ICSSR, and ICPR fellowships, and several Lifetime Achievement Awards. A visionary scholar and institution builder, Professor Veeraraghavan remains a guiding light for the psychological community. With great respect, we now invite her to deliver the presidential address. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Purnima. It was a nice introduction you gave about me. Greetings from all of us at National Positive Psychology Association. Good morning, delegates, and welcome to the third international conference, The Cultural Perspectives in Positive Psychology. In our National Positive Psychology Association, we endeavor, as Purnima pointed out, to bring together all of you professionals, researchers, and scholars to one platform to share and learn from each other the impact of positive psychology interventions on human well-being and plan for further refinement of our techniques and skills. Most of you are applying positive psychology interventions in your practice. However, it has been noticed that these interventions could be made far more effective and impactful than what it is today. As we analyze the various research efforts by many scholars and researchers, one important aspect that emerges is the lack of adopting the various cultural factors into the positive psychology intervention. For instance, positive psychology is based on the issue of developing the self, as you all know. However, this self, so called, does not hold the same meaning across cultures. In Western societies, the self is seen as independent and autonomous, whereas the self in collectivistic culture is seen as interdependent and duty bound. Similarly, the definition of well being and happiness vary from culture to culture. So, also, there exist cultural differences in values, emotions, belief, tradition, and practices, which all, in one way or another, affect the impact and effectiveness of positive psychology interventions. Hence, the practitioners of PPI, so called that is positive psychology intervention, need to be more sensitive and alert to the cultural perspective in positive psychology. Furthermore, it is important to recognize that even though certain common thread passes universally through the well-being and its contributory factors, there are also certain specific and unique patterns that are not comparable across cultures. This necessitates considering well being from the framework of each culture. Thus, positive psychology to be beneficial to all, as we all hope for and look forward to, must focus not only on universal strengths, but also recognize that concepts like happiness, resilience, and character strengths are interpreted and expressed differently across cultures. To be effective, relevant, and impactful, therefore, positive psychology must include in their techniques major aspects of indigenous cultural factors. In addition, it is important to tailor one's own views and beliefs such that the practitioner could see the perspective of another person and another culture. The concepts and ideologies developed in the Western culture erroneously are considered to exist in every culture, which approach, to an extent, has led positive psychology intervention being not so effective as it should be. Not only individualism and autonomy may not necessarily yield the desired result, the concept of self efficacy itself, which is given high importance in the Western culture to attain the goal of happiness, fails to have the required impact on people belonging to other cultures, especially Eastern and Asian cultures, which places greater value on social harmony, interdependence, and fulfilling obligation rather than happiness. Even emotions need to be considered in positive psychology intervention, as these also vary from culture to culture in expression and interpretation. To cite an example, self criticism in the Western culture is considered a deterrent to the progress of the individual, whereas in the collectivistic culture, it is considered a positive, strengthening emotion for individuals' growth and progress. Unless these cultural differences, which influence people's behavior, thinking, feeling, and action, are considered and embedded into the positive psychology intervention, positive psychology as is being practiced today will remain somewhat less impactful and less effective and less efficient in its outcome. However, it is heartening to note I've seen quite a number of our abstracts that had come up in the last few months, I should say. It is heartening to note that the present trend shows positive psychology professionals are increasingly adding cultural factors in the PPI techniques, such as the mindfulness, gratitude, and behavioral interventions. Positive psychology, armed with the latest advanced technologies, has now apps and online programs to deliver positive psychology intervention directly to the needy. It integrates the positive psychology interventions into schools now, workplaces, and healthcare setting, and also personalizes positive psychology interventions tailored to the individual's need and strengths. It cultivates positive emotions, builds solid relationship, and now by embedding cultural factors into positive psychology intervention, positive psychology proposes a meaningful, flourishing life globally. With these few words, I declare open the third National Psychology, Positive Psychology Association's International Conference in the Cultural Perspectives in Positive Psychology. Thank you all, and I hope the 2 days will be very meaningful in its deliberation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your insightful presidential address. We are deeply honored to now invite Professor Kamlesh Singh, Secretary, NPPA, to deliver the welcome note. Professor Singh is a renowned scholar and professor of psychology at the Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi, where she has been advancing psychology science for nearly 2 decades. Her major areas of expertise include positive psychology, applied positive psychology, psychometrics, community psychology, and the psychological well being of rural women and adolescents, fields in which she has made both academic and grassroots level contributions. Professor Singh has developed indigenous tools and interventions and has led national and international projects with ICSSR, ICMR, World Bank, and Global Happiness Network. Professor Kamlesh Singh, recipient of the prestigious Shane J. Lopez Award by the American Psychological Association and the Raj Bhasha Gaurav Award for original book writing in Hindi, भारतीय संदर्भ में व्यवहारिक सकारात्मक मनोविज्ञान. She is a member of the Council of Advisors at the International Positive Psychology Association, and her pioneering work in contextualizing positive psychology in India through her books, interventions, and the Manthan Gyan or Vigyan initiative continues to inspire scholars and public alike. I now request Professor Singh to deliver the welcome note and set the stage for this enriching journey ahead.
Ma'am, could you please unmute yourself?
Hope I am audible. Yeah, good morning, all of you. Thank you, Purnima, for such a warm introduction to all participants. Professor Vimala Veeraraghavan, Purnima, Professor Pulkit Khanna, Professor Lindsay, and dear esteemed participants. It is my great pleasure to warmly welcome you all on behalf of the organizing committee to the third International Conference of National Positive Psychology Association. This year's theme, Cultural Perspective in Positive Psychology, invites us to explore how culture shapes well-being, character strengths, and human potential. We are truly honored by your presence and look forward to a meaningful and enriching experience together. Let's talk about this theme. Just a minute. Yeah. So let's take a moment to learn more about this year's conference theme. Cultural psychology or cultural perspectives is a field of psychology that examines cultural factors such as a culture's values, collective memories, shape human behavior, cognition, and emotions. As Hen in 2012 in his book, Cultural Psychology, highlighted that a cultural psychological approach investigates whether the principles that guide human thought and behavior are universal or culturally specific and how culture influences psychological functioning. In cultural psychology, culture is understood as a set of beliefs, values, norms, practices, and symbols shared by the members of a society or of a group. Cultural perspective refers to the ways in which individuals, communities, and societies perceive, interpret, and interact with the world based on their cultural backgrounds. It has been observed that the cultural factors can shape human thoughts, feelings, attitudes, beliefs, behaviors, etc., in different ways specific to each society or culture. Cross-cultural psychology focuses on studying human behavior in a way that takes the effects of culture into account. It compares and contrasts how people from different cultures think, feel, and act. The theme, cultural perspective in positive psychology, highlights the importance of considering culture when defining and developing positive psychological constructs. It also emphasized the need for culturally sensitive assessments and the thoughtful design and delivery of interventions that respect and reflect cultural contexts. That is very relevant topic because understanding cultural perspective in positive psychology is essential due to the significant variation in how individuals experience and express well-being and other positive psychological constructs across cultures. As we know, culture can be divided in individualistic and collectivistic cultures. Individualistic cultures more focusing on I and me. On the other hand, collectivistic cultures more on us and we. There are various explanations of these two type of cultures. It is estimated that the approximately 70% of the world cultures are collectivistic, with only about 30% being individualistic, underscoring the need to adapt psychological theories and practices accordingly. Challenging Western-centric bias in research when we say our mostly researches are based on weird, Western, educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic participants. Nason and his associate in 2018 reported that 97% of studies in psychology were based on weird participants, raising questions about the generalizability of findings. Furthermore, another scholars mentioned that six leading psychological reports that nearly 90% of research participants were from Western industries countries, and 60% of those were Americans. So that's why in psychological studies, we talk about approach, with which approach we are doing research, whether that is ethic approach or emic approach. As we know, ethic approach examines behavior from an outsider's perspective, seeking universal principles that can be applied across all cultures. Also, ethic approaches often imply scientific methods and framework to study cultures, seeking patterns and generalizations, considering objective analysis. This approach relies on standardized tools and theories, often developed in one cultural context that's mostly Western and then applies to others. The emic approach, on the other hand, focuses on understanding psychological phenomena from within the cultural context. It emphasizes culturally specific meanings, beliefs, and practices, and seek to understand behavior on its own terms. This perspective seeks to capture the unique experiences, feelings, and viewpoint of cultural insiders. For example, studying the concept of Sukh, Anasakti, uh, Vikaras, Sachidanand within Indian traditions without equating it directly in Western notions of happiness. On the other hand, we talk because that's a more imposed ethic approach in research, in which theoretical constructs, assumptions, or measurement tools developed within one culture context are applied to another without adequating cultural adaptation have been widely critiqued for their lack of contextual sensitivity. Such practices risk misrepresenting or oversimplifying culturally nuanced psychological phenomena. In contrast, the promotion of derived ethic frameworks is essential. These approaches begin with cross-cultural comparisons, but evolve through the integration of both universal patterns and culture-specific insights, combining ethic and emic approach. The resulting models are not only methodologically sound, but also culturally respectful. Therefore, advancing derived ethic methodologies while deliberately avoiding imposed ethic practices is critical for the development of globally valid positive psychological science. Next, which is most important for us to understand connections between Indian psychology and positive psychology, a comparative integrative perspective. As all of us know, positive psychology is a scientific study of strengths and virtues that enable individuals and communities to thrive. While the field has emerged largely from Western psychological paradigms. On the other hand, Indian psychology offers a rich indigenous complementary framework rooted in ancient philosophical and spiritual traditions that parallel and enrich the goal of positive psychology. Indian concepts such as Sthit Pragya, Nishkam Karm, Yogas Guru Karmani offer profound psychological insights into mental balance, emotional regulation, and purposeful actions. So IP and PP, Indian psychology and positive psychology together, they offer a holistic and culturally sensitive pathways to individual and collective flourishings. And this integration could broaden the cultural relevance of positive psychology, offer spiritually grounded interventions for well-being, deepen the understanding of positive psychological constructs, bridge empirical rigor with inner contemplative practices, and this integration is crucial for creating a truly global and inclusive science of, especially in the Indian context, where ancient psychological wisdom is part of psychological studies. Uh, there are various scholars now in recent literature who are combining culture, spiritual and religiosity for studying positive psychological developments. So, because we know culture, religion and spirituality, these are highly connected with each other, and these are create actually surrounded environment of an individual. So, cultural perspective in positive psychology offers exploration of cultural differences in well-being. And this exploration, Western models of well-being often prioritize autonomy, self-efficacy, hedonic happiness. However, many cultures value spiritual fulfillment, communal harmony, and religious duty as more vital to a meaningful life. And culturally sensitive assessment tools we need to have on very unique constructs of that culture, like in Indian psychology we could say anasakti, vikaras, kam krodh molo, of offering that kind of explanations and various other constructs which are originated from Indian psychology. Development of culturally sensitive interventions we could have, and with this we can have cultural perspective and religious spiritual practices in positive psychology. For instance, in collectivistic cultures, religious practices like prayer, meditation, rituals, singing religious folk songs, and community, workshop are often central pathways to achieving peace of mind and well-being. So different type of meditation and yoga based interventions could be part of our intervention sessions. By integrating cultural diversity in research, assessment, and intervention, as Professor Veeraraghavan already mentioned, positive psychology can evolve into a truly inclusive science of human flourishing that honors the richness of global human experiences. So in this third International Conference of Positive Psychology, by our esteemed association, NPPA, we will be having various scholars to highlight some more points on this topic. To gain deeper insights into the theme, we are pleased to welcome some of the most renowned scholars who will be sharing their valuable research with us. And there are various themes and their topics, their themes, and totally we are having, with these themes, we are having 24 sessions, 132 research papers would be presenting. Before I conclude, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to all those who have contributed to the success of this conference. The organizing committee, keynote speakers, chairpersons, moderators, paper presenters, and the participants. Your commitment and involvement have made this gathering possible. And for that, we are truly grateful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Kamlesh Singh, for so eloquently guiding us through the evolving landscape of positive psychology and your profound body of work. Your address has not only illuminated the path, but also set a compelling tone for the dialogues, discoveries, and reflections that lie ahead over the next 2 days. Now,